Hey there, and welcome back to the Total Potential Podcast. We're so happy to have you with us here today. It's Cole and Jake. And today we're going to be breaking down a topic that's really like a major passion area for both of us, but also is something like we've really had to work for and with to see it come to fruition. And that is the area of physical wellness and specifically movement. So, Jake,
Yeah,
we love this topic.
we
um,
do.
yeah, I mean, I'm a certified yoga instructor. Jake is a CrossFit level 1 trainer. He trains jujitsu. We both like to pursue lots of different types of physical movement. But like I said, that doesn't mean it's always been like a walk in the park either. So, what is this when you think about physical movement and moving your body? What's the first thing that kind of comes to mind for you, Jake?
Yeah, I think you really nailed it when you just talked about obviously being a huge passion for both of us, but really a foundational piece in this kind of overall journey towards, whatever you're really shooting for. It's impossible to do, things if you're not taking care of your body. So I think for me, the big thing out of this whole deal is coming out of the athlete part of my life. Never really thought about movement that much because that was what got paid to do. I mean, it was that was my job. And so it's always something that I enjoyed and always something that I did. But when I was playing hockey, it was for like the very specific purpose of being as good at that sport as possible. So I think then when I transitioned out of playing sports and fell off my fitness a little bit, not having some type of a driver or a reason to do it just kind of fell to the side. And then obviously it was a trickle effect to all these other things in my life. So kind of being very, very strong in the movement, taking 4 or 5 years of my life where I was just kind of waffling through, not doing anything. Now on this side of it, understanding that, that functional fitness piece is so important. So, I just very, very, very passionate about it and very excited to talk with you about it today.
Yeah. I had sort of an interesting experience, like you're talking about with being an athlete. Like over the course of 5 years, I had a really weird trajectory related to movement, being that number one, same thing. Like, I mean, I know high school is very different than being a professional athlete, but being fit was part of pursuing sport until I was 18 years old, right? I didn't do it
Yeah,
to look a certain way. I just played sports and the things you needed to do to be decent at those sports. And so that was until I was 18. But then when I was 19, I was majorly sidelined and like couldn't pursue any of the previous activities that I had. And so that really shifted, like, how do I take care of my body when all the things that I'm used to doing don't make sense anymore? And then I had babies.
yeah,
And immediately was like in that postpartum, you know, do I get my body back? Do I care about how it looks? So over the course of 5 years, it's like in every part of the fitness spectrum that you could ever imagine. And it took like a while to get out of that and start pursuing movement for reasons that had nothing to do with achievement or with looking a certain way. Because the fact of the matter is that the achievement part of my life in terms of sport had ended, and the looking a certain way part, it literally just it did not ever have enough meaning for me to pursue movement regularly. Like once in a while that would be okay, that's exciting, I'll go get a workout in because I care about a dress that fits or whatever, but like not every day.
yeah,
Yeah. So what was
yeah.
it like for you, Jake, when you started getting back into movements? Because you go from being this elite athlete to like not moving to back into it. And that's got a certain curve to it too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the big catalyst for me was, I was sitting there one day very specifically remember it. I was just thinking about all of the stuff in my life that was not going well. It was just, everything was kind of spinning out of control, and the excuses that I was allowing myself to say why this wasn't happening or why that wasn't happening. And really it was just, I wasn't doing anything to advance my life at all. So I was sitting there and I was thinking about all these things that I had just been stacking excuse on excuse on excuse. What it came down to for me was I needed one thing that I knew I had control over, and that was getting my butt into the gym to work out. Not even necessarily the workout part, just physically driving to the building, out, open up the door, and then whatever happened from there was going to happen. But I knew that I could control that. I knew that was something that it was in my power to either do or not do. It was just a simple choice every single day. Am I going to go or am I not going to go? And then what I realized from there was just that one small thing that I committed to. And all of a sudden it was harder to cut corners in, my relationship with my wife, or hanging out with my kids, or what I was doing at work or whatever. It totally shifted my mind to, well, okay, I'm not taking this thing that I used to do my whole life for granted anymore. It's something that I have to do, because if I don't do it, then I allow myself these little cracks that, then all this bad stuff comes flooding in. And then next thing you know, it's been a couple of weeks and haven't done any workouts, but then you also just been off emotionally and mentally, and, present with your family and all that stuff. I mean, so for me, it is for surely the anchor that if I control that piece of just doing the action, making the decision to go do it, then it kind of fortifies me to make sure that I'm being disciplined in these other areas that are super necessary too. So
Yeah.
that's how I kind of got back on track, was just simply thinking, the one thing I've been good at my whole life, why don't I just start there?
Yeah. Well, you're bringing up an important point, which is that we've both had a shared experience, different experiences, but shared experience in that we knew being fit before we were ever remotely unfit.
Yeah.
And it's a real gift, because of that, once we landed in a place where we weren't taking care of our bodies as well physically, we felt like that mental fog, the fatigue, the negativity that just creeps in when your body is not cared for. But that was the gift of being an athlete first, right? Because that was just a baseline. That was just normal to feel good that way. And then when we didn't, whoa, that was a real wake-up call. And that was, for me, one of the biggest catalysts too to get moving, was that I just needed to shake the mental fog that was just kind of hanging over me. And then of course you start thinking about a little bit more important why, right? All of a sudden I have little kids who, you have a baby, you recover, you have a baby, you recover, you have a baby, you recover. All of a sudden I have these little kids, and they want me to play tag at the park, but it's freaking hard for me to play tag at the park because they're fast and agile and I'm out of shape. And I didn't want to be a sideline mom. I wanted to be able to say yes when they said, "Mom, will you chase me?"
Yeah.
Yes, I will. And you better watch out because I got my fast shoes on, or, whatever. I just
For sure.
And so between the mental part of it and the, real big driving why it was important for me to be physically capable, those two things combine into a really powerful, motivating force to just do something every day. I don't care what the thing is, just do something every day. Little,
exactly.
big, little, sideways, I don't care, just something every day.
Yeah. And that the piece of what you just said, there's literally no excuse to not move. I mean, if you can't get to the gym, you can still put your shoes on and go for a run, or you can do push-ups or air squats. I mean, it just, so, and I'm saying this because, like I said, I was making all of these excuses. And I mean, it still happens to this day. I mean, there's days you wake up and you're like, man, I just feel like a slug. You didn't sleep well, didn't eat well, whatever might have happened. But, you know, the awesome thing about movement is it's a simple choice. You know, when you get into some of these other areas of your development with your mental, emotional, some of these other things, I mean, there might be some major snags that take a while to get through. But if you don't do something physically active, that's just simply you just made an excuse and didn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, so but that's what's so fundamental about it is it's something that you can start with. It's something that you can control as long as there's not an injury or something that, you know, prevents you from not doing it. But otherwise it's like, okay, I can wake up every day and know that even if I let myself down and everybody else down in every area of my life, I can do that one thing for sure.
Yeah. Well, and
You
you're
can build on it.
also touching on the point of like, so when there's that mental and emotional work to do, which we all have to do, like welcome to being a human being, um, you cannot extract those parts of your life from your body. Like your emotions, your mental self lives inside your body. And we treat
Yeah,
them like they're separate things. Like, okay, I have an emotional challenge, I'll go to a therapist, which go for it. Like, absolutely. If you have an emotional challenge, go to a therapist. But then we treat that as the only mechanism for addressing that issue. Like, if you want to work through some emotional challenges, get your body moving because it's all going to just boom, like be right there for you. And for some of
yeah,
us, it's as simple as just moving the energy of like what that emotional work is, which when you move your body, here you go. Like the energy has a place to move and get to and get out and be released. And
yeah,
so it's just so critical to understand like we cannot separate a mental fog or an emotional challenge or even our emotional like bliss. Like we cannot separate that from our physical body. It's not possible.
for sure. And it sets the stage because to physically get fit, it takes hard work. Like, you have to do something very challenging to get that. And then when you get into these other things, like what we just mentioned with, you know, some mental, emotional, maybe some trauma or whatever, if you think that's going to be easy, that makes the workouts look like nothing. But it's
Yeah.
just, you don't, you're not kidding yourself by thinking that, you know, I can buy this thing on an infomercial, strap it around my stomach, and I'm going to get a six pack. No, you have to go out and do it. You have to work super hard. But which is awesome, you know, and again, it's a simple choice. You do it, you feel great. If you did a super hard workout with somebody that you love, or with your wife or your kids or a friend, the connection that you have with those people is really strong. Um,
Absolutely.
who knows, maybe a conversation after a hard workout with somebody very close to you starts flowing out of you, and something sparks, you know, that you've been searching for in some of these other pieces, or, you know, these other
Yeah.
areas. So um, it just sets the stage for everything. It really does.
And it's really cool because like truly anyone, you, me, everybody, like you can start exactly where you are. There is nothing to say that overnight you're going to be some kind of like insane athlete. And why we would even entertain that as an idea is so bizarre, but it's like totally how we're wired.
Yeah,
But that philosophy of like crawl, walk, one, crawl, walk, run, like you start where you start and you take baby steps, even if they're on your hands and knees, and you like progress. Like it's been years now, right, that this has been in motion. But when I started getting back into daily intentional movement, the first thing was, can I just do like some air squats next to the tub, like while my kids are taking a bath? Or can I like get on my knees and do a handful of push-ups while the kids are putting Legos together, or like whatever it is? If they're out in the driveway doing chalk, can I do a few lunges like in the grass? I mean, this was not very exciting or like monumental in any way. It's just that I was moving my body every single day. But
yep,
now I'm training for like crazy stuff, and it's totally different than where I started. but I would have never, ever, ever been able to get here if I didn't start there. Like this only exists because it takes time and effort.
Yeah. No, and it's somebody said to me one time, right when I started getting back on caring about myself and wanted to, start doing some of these developmental things again. Somebody mentioned to me, so how many years did you play hockey? And I said, almost 30. Said, okay, well, if you just started skating today, would you be as good as you were when you ended your career? And it was eye-opening of like, no, there's no chance. I mean, it's, that's a 30-year progression to get where I was when I was at the end. So it's one of those things where you have to give yourself some grace. The worst thing you can do is have that negative loop continue to go of like, oh, I'm a piece of crap. I haven't worked out in 5 years. I can't even run a mile or whatever might happen. Right. It's like, take a walk down to the mailbox and have that be a super positive thing. I just did it. Next week, I'm going to the light pole. Weekend, whatever. So at the end of the day, you can't look to some of these other outside things that we have in our life consuming us and be like, oh man, that guy's better than me at that, or this person's better at that. I can't, I'll never be that. Well, the harsh reality is you won't be if you just stay stagnant.
Right.
So move and have a big audacious goal sitting out there, but then back it into where you are and just start working, put in the daily work, build that habit. So 5, 10, 20 years down the road, right? It's, that's like jujitsu. I think what's so cool about that is like, yeah, it'd be sweet to be a black belt, but guess what? You're not going to get to be a black belt for 10 plus years.
Right.
So, if you don't enjoy the journey, I mean, you're going to quit before you start. So something to think about.
Well, and it's kind of interesting to entertain, right? Like where this could go. But the fact of the matter is like just doing it every day, that's what unfolds what's possible.
Yeah.
Because I think about there's a few things that come to mind. When I started doing yoga, like I put my toe in it for a couple of years. And I mean like toe in it, like I'd go to a few sessions, over the course of a year just to kind of like see what it was about. And I just felt terrible when I was there because I am not an inherently flexible person. Like my body is built to move load. Our Taylor genes just are built that way. And it was so challenging. I just avoided it like the plague. But then I started learning more about the philosophy and having a little bit more interest in like what the practice could entail that really had nothing to do with how flexible you are. And all of a sudden, instead of tiptoeing into it, a few times a year, like I'm at teacher training and it's becoming fascinating to me. And then I'm practicing every day and it's becoming more fascinating to me. But that wasn't because I just decided all of a sudden I was going to look like a picture on Instagram. Like I still don't look like pictures on Instagram and I'm like super cool with that. And so it's I think really important to kind of have an idea of why you would want to pursue any particular thing, but then just be really open to what could be possible. Because I have been saying this so much lately, like anything's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Everything lives inside of you. Anything is possible. And so who knows when you're moving every day, what might come of that? How exciting to think that you could just be finding out like one day at a time.
Yeah. And like you said, your goal might change 50 times as you get more fit. You might have thought of what you wanted when you started. It was not even anything close to what it actually was that you were shooting for. But that's the awesome part about it is through the journey, you'll find the actual path that you're supposed to be on, but you just got to keep moving down the road. It's not rocket science. It's super simple. But again, that's what makes it such a great place to start. And even, I take this last year for me, and it's like, there were times throughout the year where I got off of my daily habit of movement, and then I could feel, and I could sense these other things start slipping into my life. I would have never been able to do that 4 or 5 years ago. It would just been this snowball of just crap, So instead of going a month, 6 months, a year, it's like these smaller setbacks for me personally now might last a day, right? 2 days, half of a day, where it's like I can hear my mind start to make excuses for all this stuff that's going wrong. And it's very, very clear. It's just, right, all of that stuff just points right back to me. Take care of your crap, get yourself set back on what you can do, and then keep moving.
Yeah.
So that's what's cool, and it's all in the journey. It's all things that you learn throughout the course of it. But there's going to be good and bad. It's just, you just have to keep moving. You have to keep growing, and then it will just get better and better.
Well, and I think the other thing that we haven't really touched on yet that's so awesome with movement is that it's really important for us to do hard things regularly, period.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise you're just getting softer by the day. And
Yeah.
this world needs people who are strong and resilient and can bounce back and have a strong stand. Like, we desperately need those people. But in order to become that person, like, you have to do hard stuff. And maybe that hard stuff isn't all physical, for sure it's not. Like, carrying and working through like emotional work, I would say is way harder. But when you are accustomed to practicing doing hard things in the physical realm, which doesn't take much effort to pursue, right? It's like run a mile trying to go fast. Like, that's hard.
Yeah.
And so you can do these little things that condition you, and I'll speak for myself, condition me to be able to do other hard things like without much effort. I can just do them because I'm just used to being able, like, oh, that feels tough. Okay, I know how to do that. I know how to do something. I know how to remain calm. I know how to be gentle with myself. I know how to stay positive. I know how to control my breath. Like, I know how to do these things so that when real, actual hard things come my way, it's like, oh yeah, well, that's just like, I'm cool with that. I can do that.
Yeah.
It's just like the easiest way for us to pursue that day in and day out, and just like get that pathway or that muscle of being able to do that ready to go.
For sure. I think you nailed it. I think that it's that concept of struggle, which is really, really good. We get the chance to build struggle into our lives through physical fitness, through movement, through all of this stuff. And then, like, for me personally, the biggest thing that I struggle with is seeking this approval for some reason for other people. And no more than right now, right, it's so much more important to have a very strong stand, like you said. But if you're out there seeking what everybody, like, oh, like me, you might not be able to have a conversation with somebody that you have to, like, no, I do not agree with that. I still love you, and we can be cordial and have a conversation, but I'm not just going to bend because, I want you to like me. So doing hard stuff in the gym allows me to have a hard conversation, which is, for me personally, 10 times harder than going in 10 miles or doing something crazy. It's just, that's just, for me, it's much, much harder to do things like that. So thinking about life every single day of that, like, enjoyment of always getting a little bit more resilient and more able to deal with struggle and more problem solving type mindset. If there's an obstacle comes up, instead of just catastrophic, oh, why did this happen to me again? And for me personally, that all is rooted in just a challenging physical practice.
Yeah.
A daily commitment to that.
It's a critical part, and it can't be overlooked. It just, like, I love the book, The Body Keeps the Score. Like, if you think there's a way to separate your emotions, your mind, your resilience, and anything about you. If you think there's a way to separate that from inside your body, there's just not. And
Yeah.
so being clear that like our bodies are full of energy, they're meant to be moved. And that movement is just connected to like every other thing,
Yeah.
whether that's courage, resilience, mental clarity. I mean, connection, like self-awareness. I mean, there's so many things. It's like you can't, if you want to find those things, start with your body, period.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even breath, right? I mean, I think about that all the time. You and I had the conversation a million times when Dan and I were running that marathon, right? I made the excuse for myself. Well, I breathe through my mouth. That's how I've always breathed, right? So I go and do that race, breathing through my mouth, and I got a 185 heart rate for like 3 hours. It's like now, like that, I wouldn't have had that experience and realized how important the way that I breathe is if I didn't move my body and try something challenging and, go after like a big goal like that. Cause just going through the daily CrossFit and whatever, I was still able to get through that stuff with having just this atrocious way of breathing. And now, right now it's something that I'm super aware of, and it's a muscle that has to be built, same as biceps or your legs or whatever. You might have to run half a mile the first time you breathe through your nose because you feel like you're gonna pass out.
Yeah.
But again, you're crawling. Next thing you're going 2 miles. Next thing you can go a full day without ever opening your mouth, whatever.
Yeah.
It's all of that stuff happens because of moving your body and figuring things out and understanding how it works. And like you said earlier, then you get super aware of every little thing, right? Like I know when I'm whatever, like I know I'm sleeping well, I know my mind is sharp. You just get very in tune with this temple, that you don't get another one. So you might as well take it
care of this
on
one.
on the spiritual side of things, right? Like if you believe like I believe, and that our soul, like our main part of our being lives inside of this thing, well then you really should take care of it if you want that to have a good place to expand and be enlightened and whatever.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. I have a funny story to tell you about breath. So your daughter was here this weekend and we have these nose plugs for out in the pool. And it was so funny because she put one on and first of all, I did this for like a coach I was working with had me do it for a day. And it was the most miserable experience I've ever had trying to only breathe through my mouth. So Dylan puts this nose plug on and immediately is like, this feels horrible. And I'm like, I know. Can you imagine if that's how you breathed all the time? And I'm not trying to say anything bad about people who do, because it's very unconscious behavior. But so many people breathe through their mouth and like if you're not used to breathing that way, like it feels so bad. And it was hilarious that she like in an instant was like, this does not feel good. I do not like this. So I had quite a laugh about that, but which kind of brings us into, the area of family. I think movement has been really interesting to pursue in family. And like I mentioned, my first sort of aha with that was playing tag at the park. Like, I don't want to be the mom who says, nope, sorry, I can't play with you, or I don't want to play with you, or whatever. Like, I'm not sure what that message is designed to do, but it's just not one that sits well with me. And so that was like a major aha. Like, I just want to be able to play with my children. But when you think of movement and family, I mean, there's so many aspects to it. What has your experience been?
Well, I think the first one is a lot of what we just talked about of how important of a skill it is to teach our kids that physical fitness is a very important part of their journey in their life, regardless if it has sports attached to it or no sports attached to it or whatever. I mean, it just is like we said, it's such a fundamental thing. So If we aren't talking about it and having some type of system around it with our kids, then we're probably letting them down, you know? Probably we are. And so, you know, like you said, the thing is when they're young, it's such an easy thing to instill in them just by being an active family, right? Like one of our things that we do is playing soccer in the backyard. My little girl, Dylan, she's the only one that plays soccer, but we'll have just an absolute blast 2-on-2 in the backyard, right? And it's like the kids will take on mom and dad, or, you know, boys versus girls or whatever. But it's you come in and you're sopping wet and you had a great workout and you were laughing the whole time,
Yeah.
you know? So I think it's just things like that are so easy. And then what I'm starting to see with my kids, which is really cool, is because, you know, I think obviously they watch how we live and a lot of times want to replicate that. So now it's like, hey, dad, will you take me to the CrossFit gym? Right. And then we get there and Pat's working with my son on how to do a deadlift or whatever. And it's like, oh man, really cool. This is really cool. He just is curious about it. And then, you know, what I've found is awesome with the kids is they're better at struggling. You know, it's maybe their engines are a little bit better or whatever, but like if nobody around them says, hey, you should quit that, they won't quit. You know, like they'll just keep going. Like it's a cool thing. It's like, you can learn so much from kids just by observing how they act and how it's like so simple. Well, this coach here told me to do this workout, so that's what I did.
I'm doing it. Yeah.
You know, I didn't think about quitting or cutting some reps out or whatever. I just did what he told me to do.
Yeah, it's so true.
So yeah.
I love that. And this is something that you've said in the past that has really stuck with me, which is that like the default answer is yes. Kids want to jump in the pool. Why, yes, I do. I just got out of the shower, but certainly I feel like getting chlorinated. Like just having the default be like, of course I want to play with you. Of course I want to be with you. Of course I want to try that weird pyramid you're making or like whatever it is. And how powerful, like from a mindset perspective, parenting wise, how powerful that is, because I think, I'd go out on a limb and say mostly our default answer is no. And it's only when the conditions are like exactly to our liking that we're like, oh, sure. Yeah, we will do that with you. And so that's something that I've over the years, like really taken from you, like the default answer is yes. And then the other aspect that's been really powerful in our family is just like the invitation's always open. Like, I don't expect you to do any of the things that I do, but you're always welcome. Hey guys, I'm going for a run. Anyone want to come? Hey guys, I'm going to be down in the gym. Anyone want to hang out? Hey guys, like, what game do you want to play? Just always at least something every day. Like, what is the invitation to be together? Because it's not just the physical movement, right? Like now we're connected. And like you mentioned, we're laughing, we're in exchange with each other. And yes, the movement part's super important. But at some point, especially in that family setting, like the movement part disappears as what's actually happening. And you're just connecting.
For sure.
And that to me is like, oh, I would just take that over and over and over and over again. Because, there's also the component of like the endorphin release that's happening when we're moving. And now all of a sudden, it's not just that we're talking, like we feel good and we're talking about like feeling good, like the whole conversation shifts because just the way your body's chemistry responds, it's like real hard to be mad or upset or down when you're moving your body. And so now the connection isn't just like a blah conversation. Now it's fun and exciting and energized. It's totally different.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and what came to mind for me when you were saying all that is I think it even with kind of the stage of life we're in where the kids are starting to get a little bit older and their activities are getting a little bit more intense. There's less time for that the play time at home, I guess if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
But what's I've seen, which is really cool, is like if you just expose your kids to a bunch of different stuff, right? Like I see it all the time, like being involved in sports is like, no, we got to get our kid dialed into hockey right now.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you let them play baseball and football and golf and jiu-jitsu and soccer and then maybe he'll pick one of these and then he'll
That
be
he
all
actually likes.
focus on it. So I think what I found is our kids have gotten more active and more kind of honed into their path. We have less time at home to do things together, but we've kind of built this lifestyle of like, we're every single day we are going to move in some capacity. It might be an organized sport, and if it's not, we'll go for a run or a walk, or we'll ride mountain bikes, or we'll whatever, go out to the land, and who knows, dig a hole. I don't know.
Yeah. Hunt for sticks. Who cares?
We'll chop trees down, we'll split wood, whatever. It doesn't matter, but it's like it's created a lifestyle of like, if there's a little bit of recovery time needed, then it's like, okay, cool, let's turn on a show that everybody likes and we'll just sit there for 30 minutes and be mindless or whatever. Right. But it's like there's as we continue to grow in like our physicality for our whole family, those times are just, they kind of get squeezed out on their own. It's not like like, all right, we're going to set 20-minute time frame on the Xbox and we're going to put the timer on over here. It's like, no, we built our life to just have all of that stuff not even be relevant, really.
Yeah.
So
No doubt.
that might have been a little bit of a ramble, but it's just like, it's really, I think, hard when you talk about like balance of like, we got to have, everything's got to just be like, do, and one thing's off, we're screwed,
Yeah.
I think with the physical movement piece, that can happen too. It's like, oh man, we missed a workout or missed the
Yeah. It can become rigid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, just as long as we're out every day doing something, then we're good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And it's important to like, as like my own self-awareness increases in my physical body, like the days where like it's really not appropriate for me to move in a hard way, or like I really do need rest or recovery, I can tell you that in 4 seconds. I can completely distinguish between the like my mind is not so much on board versus my body is not on board, and they have two totally different feelings. And so then you can just be like, okay, well, that's interesting. I had planned to do this thing today, but like I'm gonna go for a walk instead. Like have, and it just doesn't have to be so regimented to be effective. Like it's still okay to be open and fluid and flexible. And because we can't separate our body from our mind and our mind from our body, guess what? Like when we learn to be fluid and flexible and have some wiggle room in our body, guess what we learn to do with our mind? They go hand in hand. And so that rigidity, I mean, it's really, we're conditioned to do that, right? Like if you didn't make it to the gym 7 days a week, like you are bad. Well, like said who? Like let's tune that language a little bit to something that's actually useful to us, which is also kind of a side tangent.
Well, that's the amazing thing about having a family too, right? Of like this built-in tribe is now all of a sudden it's not, you might have like your own thing, right? Like we mentioned, you love yoga, I love doing CrossFit. That's a personal thing that I get to enjoy. But what's so cool of having the idea that the movement piece is so important inside the family is then you don't have that day where it's like, oh, I had to replace the gym with a run with my kid.
Right.
It's like, no, we're just living this active lifestyle, trying to be as best as we can and be as fit as possible, and live, doing all of these things. And then, like you said, then it opens up the space for your son or daughter or wife or whatever to maybe on a walk. All of a sudden, like when the endorphins start flowing, you start to have some super deep conversation. It's like, holy crap, that was amazing. Never had. We were just sitting at home doing whatever.
Right.
So, it's more of the thought of just like activity and movement and excitement and all of these things that come along with doing stuff like that. Which that just opens things up for other awesome stuff to happen, just not even like forcing it or trying it or whatever, and
yeah,
that to me, I think, is what's awesome. There's nothing more fun for me than doing something hard with the kids or with my wife or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, we did that together. That was sweet.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. That thing lately in our house has been ice baths.
Yeah.
And I have a love-hate relationship with them. But my kids are like, Mom, it's Tuesday. It's time for an ice bath. I'm like, okay, if you say so.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can still do hard things, even when it's the kids leading the way, for sure. Jake, I'd be interested because you and I have a little bit like different experience in this way, but like some of the same undertones. So when you think about movement in relation to just specifically, not to the whole family, but just to your marriage, what has your experience been like there?
I think there's been a couple areas in the 15, 16 years that we've been together where like something will happen to me and then I'll just be like, let's go, and she'd be like, whoa, time out, dude. Like what are you doing? Whether it's a faith thing or a fitness thing or whatever. So what I think has been really cool is what we found out is you don't have to do the same workouts, or you don't have to have this, like, if we're not doing this together, we're failing. It's more of helping each other and supporting each other with what that person likes to do, So like my wife loves Orange Theory. It's like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. I love that you love that. Me personally, I would never do that.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's what she loves to do. And so it's like simple things, right? Of like asking a lot of questions about her workout, like not just being like, how was your Orange Theory take? Good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what did you do? What was the treadmill like? What was the weight part like? How did you do on the row machine? Whatever. But I think what we found is that now all of a sudden you're connecting on fitness, even though you didn't work out together.
Yeah.
And the stuff that I like to do with the CrossFit or things like that, like that just isn't enjoyable for her. So it's like, why would I say you either got to do CrossFit or like, it's just, you're not doing what you should, so I think that's been the big eye opener piece for us is we've actually had more connection on fitness as of late and have totally separate fitness goals and,
Yeah.
piece of the family, like we just talked about, which is so great, is we're both being physically fit and trying to do things to enhance our fitness. So then when we are together, it's like, well, let's go for a walk instead of let's watch Netflix, or let's go out in the backyard with the kids and kick the soccer ball around or throw the football or whatever,
Right.
or, watch my wife hit a baseball 6 times farther than I can. It's like stuff like that. It's like, because we have the same similar goal in mind of being fit. We have found over the years that it's just we're going down the road the same way. It's just, I'm on one side and she's on the other.
Yeah. Our experience is a little bit like that too. And I think, we've kind of like tiptoed into some of the things that we do enjoy together. For instance, now that I can run a little bit better, we'll run together sometimes. Or like we both really enjoy in different ways, but really enjoy Pilates. So like once a week, we go to Pilates together. And that's just fun. Like we laugh at each other. We get to like be there when each other, does the new thing that you couldn't do before and kind of root each other on. And so that's been really awesome. But I agree. For the most part, John and I have like very different bodies. It would be super weird for us actually to be training like in the exact same ways, just because we're not like designed the same.
Yeah.
And so for us, one of the biggest things has just been like that support piece. Like, how do you help your partner create the time or create, not even create, but like hold accountable to the goals that they have? And I don't mean accountable like cracking the whip. I mean like accountable just in interest, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm training for this event in September. It is hard. There are so many pull-ups. I could do one pull-up when I was like 18. So training to do some of these things that are necessary for this event has been super hard. But instead of being like, hey, did you get your 6 pull-ups yet? It's like, hey, how are the pull-ups coming? Like, what's cooking? Where is there anything I can do? It's like a totally different conversation in terms of that accountability piece.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do we give each other the space just to do those things? Because it's getting easier now as the kids get older and a little bit more self-sufficient. But man, when you have little kids, like you have to create the time for each other and just being like, hey, I've got it for the next hour. Like, what do you need to do? Do you need me to grab something for you so you can get out the door? Do you need me to make sure you wake up to your alarm? Like, what is the thing that allows me to support you so that you can also do the same thing for me? Because we're on the same page that like, this is critically important for us as like feeling decent, having enough capacity to show up as like good parents, to like you were mentioning that piece of just like connecting with you on something more than just like, hey, what's the schedule today? There's just so many elements that have been really important with us giving each other that space. But that's been like one of the biggest parts for us. Like, okay, what time do you need today? What's your plan? Here's what I'm thinking. Does that work? And that's been more of the marriage piece for us, is making sure that each other gets to do the thing that like we need to do.
For sure. And the crazy thing about that is for years, kind of between when I was done planning and up until about 4 or 5 years ago, that's one thing that like it amazes me to this day, like that Haley stayed by my side and just stuck it out when things weren't great, because the concept of giving her space was just like, it just didn't exist. Like I would take her wanting to work out as like not wanting to be with me, and just all of these is just total negative kind of, lack of better words, just being just a total loser and just a horrible spouse and whatever. And like you said, that's what it is. It's like that support piece. And what I would say now too, with where we're at, is like, she would never think if I, asked her like how workout was going, or if there was a little nudge that needed to happen there, that she's like, oh, you call me fat?
Yeah.
Or like might be the banter inside the relationship, is because I think as we grow together as a couple, I truly do think about her as like, if this is my team, that's like my partner. Like we're going to go through it together, and what that does entail sometimes is like just calling somebody out on their stuff. Right. And I just think as we mature and as we grow throughout this journey, personally, you can understand that more. You're like, no, this person has my best interest in mind, period.
Yeah.
If stuff gets really, really nasty and it's like back against the wall, I know that she's gonna be standing right next to me, doing whatever it takes to keep our kids and each other safe. Right. So why would I be mad at her if she was like, did you work out today? I was like, no. And what's it to you? It's crazy. That's what I've seen change so much, but it's because of that space. It's that freedom. Like, hey, I can watch our kids. I don't have to babysit our kids, right? Like how I used to talk.
Yeah.
I got them. Go do what you got to do, right? I think that's a super, super important piece. And the spousal part of this is allowing each other to express that movement piece however they want to, but then being super supportive and keep each other super accountable to what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, because at the end of the day, I think what my wife and Haley and I talk about all the time is like, we want to be like 100 years old and still like get to do awesome stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and the only way that can happen is if you keep yourself physically fit enough to advance through life in a way that you want to.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. That's something we haven't mentioned. It's like the daily is so much easier now because I have like a real big, huge, audacious goal for what the capacity of my life will be like long term.
yeah.
Like I want to live to be 105 and I want to like be kicking ass when I'm 105. I don't intend to go down at any point, like voluntarily, and like if you start that process when you're 50, like, okay, that's better than starting it when you're 60, but like, how can you live that long, fulfilling, relative life of ease, I will mention, right? Like, okay, yeah, working out daily might feel hard, but it feels a lot less hard than being incapacitated when I'm 70.
Yeah.
Like that feels real hard.
For sure.
And so it's like just knowing what I want that long-term picture to be like makes every day so much easier. Because it's like, oh yeah, well, that's where I'm going.
Yeah. And I heard something last week that I thought was absolutely amazing and just like put the nail in it for me too, is the guy's comment was, I want to squeeze everything out of every day.
Yeah.
So I think when you have that big goal of like, I want to live a certain way for as long as God allows me to live on this earth, but I want to live. I want to like experience my life. And for me personally, what is really transpired and which I think is so awesome is if I don't do that, it's like, that's never happening again. Right. And then you wake up the next morning with this kind of, right, things didn't go how I want them to yesterday, but guess what? I get to make the first choice today to do something to put my life back on that trajectory of just squeezing everything, relationship, personal growth, business, whatever it is, right? It's like at the end of the day, there's nothing more fulfilling when you put your head on the pillow and you're like, whew, right? Like that was a fantastic day.
Yeah.
And I got after it. I worked out super hard. I loved my wife super hard. I was intentional with my kids. I did a great job at work or advanced my business this far or whatever. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
this is fantastic.
John and I laugh because we both do this 5-minute journal, and you do part of it in the morning and part of it at night. And the last question at night is like, how could I have made today better? And most days there's like a little learning point, right? Like, ooh, well, I could have had this conversation a little bit better. I could have done one more rep on my workout, or like whatever it is. Like it's usually something fairly, like one little tweak would have made a big difference. But we kind of joke like, the more you get after it and the more learning that you do on those daily efforts, it's like there are some days now where it's like, I actually don't know what I could have done. Like this was the day. And if this was what every day was like, hallelujah. Like I couldn't ask for anything more. And so that, that same concept of can you take right there what life is offering you and just enjoy it and embrace it. But it's funny because every single day, something about my body is on the list of like what I need to do to make today good. Because I just know like shit is going to hit the fan if I don't take care of home base. Like, watch out. I am like not that fun to be around when I'm poorly slept or when I don't move my body or when I eat junk. Like the rest of me going with that.
For sure. You can actually help other people if you're in that zone, right? If you're doing everything that you should be doing to advance your own life, in existence here on earth, it's like, then you can authentically go out and tell somebody or help somebody down a challenging thing. But if you're not doing it yourself, I don't care what anybody says. I've worked with a million people, coaching, all this stuff, that when that piece is off, it's so blatantly obvious. So, the concept of that kind of like the priority list, you're not being selfish if yourself is on the top.
Right.
It just has to be that way, because then it trickles down. Then I can be an awesome husband. I can be an awesome dad. I can do super good job inside of my business or whatever. Right. But if the first one's off, or if you put that at the bottom of the list, it doesn't work. And especially with the movement piece, you cannot kid that. You can't, it's not something that you can manufacture. It just isn't. You either do hard stuff or you don't,
Yeah.
and if you try to kid yourself, everybody else can just, it's so
Yeah.
blatant.
You're the only one kidding.
It's clear,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
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 I think it's an awesome thing. I think it's really cool that it's hard, right? I think that it's cool that there's times where you struggle with it or your motivation's off or whatever. All of that stuff is for a reason. Like, it's not our existence here isn't supposed to be like, oh, I wake up and like I was just super happy. It's like, no, you go create that.
Yeah.
Like, you have to go and do things to allow yourself to feel that way. It's just,
Yeah.
we're
Gotta
not
have
supposed to
action
live
behind
this
it.
like, we're not supposed to have this journey that we're just, a 5 all the time. It's like, you're gonna have a 1 and a 10, and you're gonna have everything in between. But that's the experience.
Right. And the fact that you can manufacture that experience in the physical realm and
Yeah,
learn from it, that's exciting too, right? Like, if you
yeah,
take on a 10, what comes up for you? Because guess what? When
for
life
sure,
hands you a 10, that same stuff's going to come up. Or if you take on
for
a 1
sure.
and it's easy, like, guess what? There are times where the easy thing is the hard thing. And so if you're the kind of person who can just grind after a 10 all day, every day, you need to do some 1s, because that's where the work is, because 1 makes you uncomfortable. And
Yeah,
so find some 1s, like, and pursue those things wholeheartedly, because that's where you can learn. And like you said, like, the fact that we can, experience that through our physical body, that's a gift, because it just is
for
showing
sure,
us it's just showing us the way to other things.
for sure.
Awesome.
100%.
Well, I think if there's any way to sum it up, it would just be start where you are, do something every day, because everything that's, available inside of you, like, it gets to get created starting there.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
awesome. Well,
You're
thanks everybody for your time. What a gift it is, that you spend some of your time with us, and we do not take it lightly at all. So we will catch you next time. Peace out.